I'm Maia Benzimra. I am the co-founder and the CEO of Benzimra Co, and we help launch and scale Web3 businesses and help them become much more professional and take them from 0 to 100. We've started the Founders Ledger to provide a lot of insight and value to individuals building in this space. As everyone knows very well that's in this industry, is that there's often copious amounts of noise and it's very difficult to get real authentic advice. So I'm lucky enough to have an incredible network, and Omar being one of the individuals that I really have on a pedestal, truly an amazing individual and builder in this industry who we can all learn copious amounts from, and has been a real mentor to me in the last 2 years of founding the company. So he's been kind enough to join us today and provide some of his eloquence and experience. So welcome, Omar. Thank you so much for being here. And I'd love for you to just give a bit of an introduction as to who you are and what you're doing.
That was an amazing intro. Thank you so much for that. Much appreciated. Hello, everyone. So my name is Omar Al-Sobky. I have been an entrepreneur since I would say day one. And I fell in love with Bitcoin it was about 2011 is when it sort of came across my desk with me and my business partner. But we didn't really catch it that early. We went full time, I would say, basically around 2013 is when we started to really go, I would say, balls deep into Bitcoin and really understand it. And we started, playing around with it, getting into the mining side of it, etc. And along the way, we thought it died, of course, many times. And in that time between 2013 to 2016, 2015, around that time, I was building some other businesses, promo companies, production companies, multimedia companies, transmedia companies, gamification companies, and doing a bit of traveling. And then all of a sudden, Bitcoin started taking flight again. And it was 2016 where I went full time into building projects. And I started advising. I started working with a group in Sydney, Australia called Digital Asset Firm. And those days, that was the beginning of the ICO phase. And that's when we started to see some of these big names. One of our first biggest ones that we invested in and advised for was Monaco, which turned into crypto.com. We also had Ant Shares, which turned into Neo. And these coins are still around today, of course. Many are not. But back in those days, it was everyone trying to blockchain this, blockchain that. How do I make anything blockchain? Essentially I was working alongside this group, building projects, advising, looking at white papers, XYZ, and then working with advisors. And then I wanted to really work my own angle of what I wanted to see in the industry, because at that time it was a very different industry. Advisors were paid XYZ to come on board, open their network, blah, blah, blah. But that was it. There was no sort of like walkthrough or wayfinding. And that's something that I wanted to do, was really drive projects all the way through Web 2, coming into Web 3, understanding the culture, Web 3, understanding what the business side of things are, because people were quite young at the time when they were getting to Web 3. So what we did was we basically mentored people through, and wayfinding is the word that I used. And I started my own consultancy firm. And that's something that we really stuck quite close to, wayfinding, a boutique agency, and driving people forward, projects forward. And then, of course, we've got a good network of investors. And then I joined Magnus Capital, became one of their routers, essentially, where I would talk to about 25 to 50 projects a week and basically route them through the firm. And then Block Consult was the main consultancy for Magnus. And and now I'm balls deep into AI and applying AI consulting for SME companies, large, small, medium, and basically becoming that AI translator for many businesses. So that's my bit of journey and where I am and what I do.
And I'm sure that there's a lot of crossover between Web3 and AI, and I'm really excited to get into that. But there was a few things from your intro that I think sparked interest, because, I mean, you and I, we've been partners now for about 2 years. We've been working across some of Magnus's portfolio clients, and we've been lucky enough to work on some real financial infrastructure that has innovation, right? Which is often quite rare in this space. You know, where does the innovation actually lie? But we've been working on some really fantastic projects and a bit of Web 2 into Web 3 integration. So, you know, throughout the last 2 years and how long we've been working together, what would you say is the biggest difference in energy from maybe when we first met in Dubai on a yacht in the peak of the bull run to now? And like, how would you assess the space, especially for everyone that's building in this environment right now? What's your perspective of the current industry?
Well, I think just regarding what you were saying, I think when we first met, the quality of projects, we were in the right direction, I feel, when projects were coming along. But I mean, just to say some things about our first conversation and why we kept this relationship moving. And I think it's quite simple what we're both after. You know, we share the same standards and the same passion for this space. And we've got a strong desire to really build things properly. And as you said at the very beginning, to get rid of that noise, that crud, that crap that's sitting around. And the main thing that has actually pulled this market in the wrong direction. And I think that's something that we shared, your passion for the space, your genuinely caring about the space, and also not only the space itself, it was also your technology, your understanding of the technology and the full aspect of it, and your creativity and your attention to detail. And that's something that we started to see. You came along, and that's what I saw in you. And that's how our styles really worked well together. And that's something that we started to see projects do. We started to see a lot of utility, and instead of 2017 and even earlier days with these meme coins, etc. We started to see some good traction, and we all thought that at that time as well that the institutions were close or there, and it wasn't speculation as well. It still was, but that's the difference that I'm starting to see now to what it was. It was still those days when we met, people were being creative, they were being very speculative around the assets, etc. We still had meme coins floating around, but now we don't. And that's a big thing that we're going to talk about.
Absolutely. There is a shift in speculation, isn't there? It's kind of, there's this certainty that institutions are going to be onboarding blockchain because it's just far more efficient, and tokenization. And there's this very interesting shift happening in capital markets as a whole. But I think the thing that is the most difficult to navigate right now, especially as an individual that's on the front line in both retail and institutional markets, it is really the retail side and where that sits, because the speculative, fun nature of crypto is definitely shifting. So it's going to be a very interesting few years ahead of us.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So there's obviously a lot of projects that come your way. You've obviously worked with over 150 projects in your time. You've worked with on the investment side, and that enables you to see a lot of what's out there. So I would assume that a lot of people who are going to watch this are either in the midst of building something, have ideas to build something, or have already built something but they're looking to scale it. So what would you say you really look for when it comes to a project? And is there anything that immediately puts you off when you see a project that comes into your peripheral?
Yeah, there is. We do see a lot. Everyone sees a lot. Now, not so much, which is good. But there are a few. There's a bit of a playbook that I follow myself, and I've got the 3 S's. It's called specific, simple, and sexy, and that's something that I keep looking for in projects, founders, when they're building or when they're even pitching to me. So it does come down to the pitching side of it. But when I see a project, and I don't really look at pitch decks, to be honest. Sometimes I do, I just go straight through it, but I want the team to tell me what is going on. I don't want to read it. You know what I mean?
So you're expecting the founder to come and pitch to you.
That's the biggest thing for me and it's not even about the pitch, it's about the energy. It's all about the conviction. And I also, I want to, because if you read a pitch deck, it just basically states what the money, where it's going. And it's not specific enough. It's like marketing, but then I don't want to know marketing. I want to know what sort of marketing and why do you need this money? A good founder comes to me with enthusiasm, a lot of energy, and they know exactly what they want for that money. So, they're coming to me at that point that they've tested something out, or they're getting some sort of success and they need X amount of money to get them to where they are. So as a founder, they need to know exactly in their heads and in their mind why they're coming to get money. Over many years, we've just seen people saying, I just need money.
Absolutely. And it's
what I mean?
Anymore. And I think that's been the biggest shift in the investor field in our space. It's like you actually need an MVP or something.
And that's the whole thing of AI that's come into this place. There's no more excuses. There's no more excuses. And because there's no more excuses for you not to be enthusiastic, because you can easily come into a project and, I know that you're going from failure of not getting the money. And that's the thing, isn't it? Courage is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. And I understand that, but I don't want to see the failure in the meeting. And if you're prepared and you know everything, founders know exactly, the good ones that I've talked to and the ones that have raised capital, and even some of the big boys in AI at the moment, some of these founders they blow you away because they know their numbers, they know their bottlenecks, they know how to communicate their vision, and they're clear, they're simple, and they're specific, and they're very sexy on what they want, and they're very passionate about it. So that's what I like to see. And then if I do see any problems, it's usually in the team, because that's what I go to first. And that's why I want them to tell me about what they're doing. And then, of course, solving a problem's a big thing, not a product. I want to solve a problem. So that's something I'm looking for as well when they're talking about it. And the founders, they have an idea of the problem. They're not just pitching the technology at me and basically giving me all these buzzwords and just keep talking about the technology. I feel like I'm in an interview with Russell Brand. It's just full of words and words and words, and there's no substance. But we need something here where there's your customer, you know what you're doing, and you're solving a problem. And from even that, then you can create everything, keep everything specific. And from there comes energy. So there's quite I would say, like a spiritual journey in all of that.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, anyone can have an idea, but the execution of being a founder and actually launching a company is 100% not for the weak. So I think energy is everything. Are you willing to do what it takes to bring this to market and be kind of selfless, because it is a selfless journey and you need to put all of it in. You sacrifice a lot as a founder because you have to put every cell of your being, or probably won't end up being successful. So, and
also your reputation and everything. And just one ick is essentially when I've been in these meetings, or as an advisor, or come on consulting for a project, because we need to do our due diligence as well when we're coming in, and then we are getting investors on board. So we have to get into the nitty gritty, and that's why I go straight to the founders. And that's something I want to talk about a bit later on, or now, whenever. But it's about understanding people. And when you're in these meetings and you're getting some traction, the rock star mentality and the ambitious, I would say, overspending of the capital and saying stuff like, oh, we'll get there when we get our Lamborghinis. And that sort of mentality to me just really freaks me out when I start hearing about the money side of things. So I think it's not about chasing the money. It's, it's going, money will come, as they always say. There's a cliche here. The playbook's there. We hear it all the time, but it's true. Like, you don't want to follow the money. And that's what I do, is keep everything simple, specific, and sexy, and bring things back, cut it down, trim it out, bring it back is what I always say.
Also, I think as soon as you start chasing the money, the further away it goes, right? You really need to focus on the value that you're bringing and the problem you're solving. And if it's of high enough quality and it's something that's genuinely needed, then you're going to be rewarded by that. And if you make sure you've got the right revenue models and however you've set it up, there should be a way for you to generate that capital, but there needs to be a willingness for that upfront grind always.
Agreed.
So we're talking early stage. So this is great. So this is prior to you getting the funding, but let's say, you've got some capital, you're right in the build. Something that I speak about a lot is this adoption risk. And I think that that's something that's very interesting. It's like, can you give us, considering you work with so many projects, what has been the primary reason that technology hasn't been adopted once you're in with the weeds of it? Like a few issues that you've seen, because I think that this can be very helpful, because at the end of the day, you can have an amazing idea, you can have amazing technology, but what are the core reasons why sometimes it's just not adopted and sometimes these projects really struggle?
I honestly think it goes back to the founders and it goes back to the founders and what you're building. And that's something that I've strived my success on, is knowing people and what they want and their motives and their behavior and picking that early, because it's essentially you're investing in people. And that's what investing is. You're investing in this team. And you notice that, again, it comes back to they're just trying to build this technology, and it's not solving the problems. And the team getting it right now are the ones that know their customers, KYC, and they know their distribution strategy. They know how to get users, and they know exactly why as I said, they're raising that capital right now, and can communicate that vision clearly, because the technology will get you somewhere. But again, it's just that distribution, execution, and understanding what people want, and that's what wins. So I feel, again, it's that conviction, and they're the ones that are doing it, and the ones that are genuinely bringing it's just all find out. Like Hype is doing wonders.
Yeah.
And it's because of that revenue play, and it's because it went through. Well, basically, it went through the start of a crypto bear market. Did 10-10 happen because one player was trying to get rid of another player? Who knows? But, they survived at the other side of this and have completely destroyed, if there was a competition. I'm not saying anything.
Yeah.
But and they knew exactly what they were doing from day one. And, I had the privilege of actually talking to their team a while ago. Yeah. And it was
not many people have spoken to the Hyperliquid team.
Yeah. And it was, even then they knew exactly, and they said no to us, and what we were doing. And of course they did, because we were not right for what they were trying to do at that time. And they knew exactly what they were doing and where they wanted to go. And they knew exactly what they wanted from their investors. So that's it, and a lot of projects. And then again, as you were saying before, what do these founders do? They sacrifice, and some people don't want to sacrifice. And we know this a lot. Like when people have come to us and need consulting, or they need some sort of direction, and we're like, so how many houses have you got? 4. Okay, well, there's nearly $3 million, maybe, who knows? Maybe you should sacrifice that. Oh, no, I can't. Well, then, look, how bad do you want it?
Yeah, if you're not willing to actually bootstrap in some kind of way, or have some sort of self-investment or sacrifice, then how can you expect others to do the same? I completely
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And 500 grand will help us get no, that's an MVP. That's not enough. It's laughable nowadays when people say $500,000. It's not enough to do anything. And then by coming in by saying that we need $500,000, and then how big's your team? We got 13 people. 13 people. It just doesn't make sense. The math does not. Yeah, that's exactly right. And even for a team of 3, get somewhere. And then again, it comes down to what is that money needed for? This is specifically exactly what we need. We need 500 here. In 3 months' time, we need this, and then break it down like that. And then if you can do that, it shows that you can work numbers, you can work your technology, you can work your customers, and you can understand where you're going. And it's just a plan, and it works.
I really like what you were saying earlier, and it fits into my mindset around foundership, what it takes to be adoptable and investable, right? Because those are the two main things. Being investable is one thing, and being adoptable is another. But I think it's really interesting what you're saying is that those two worlds are merging drastically, and founders now need a plan in regards to adoption prior to even, raising capital. And I've created a framework in my mind around 3 things that founders need to do to be capital ready and to be successful in this market. One is what I like to call the pivoting disease, where founders often aggressively pivot to reach metas in the market, which can cause them huge discomfort internally, really affect their burn rate, confuse their community, confuse their team. So, before you pivot, be very sure about that decision. Are you chasing a trend? Are you actually giving your initial positioning enough time before you pivot? Because I find that, often in this industry, we do have this kind of sickness that we don't give our positioning enough time. We've not fully tested it in the market. How could we possibly know if it's time to pivot if we haven't truly tested the positioning that we originally go for? And I find that founders often end up completely 360 back at their original positioning years later, So that's something that I think will make you more adoptable, is like figure out what it is that you are to a market and try and stick to it at least for 6 months, which is cool. And
that is something that we've seen as well, is the ever pivoting project. Yes, it's cool to adapt the trend. There.
Yeah.
Being desperate procedures, right? Like if you have to change your business plan or your model and not just sit in it for a while and have that conviction of this is what we're building, you're moving away. That means you haven't firmed it out and you don't trust it. And then when I'm in a meeting with these projects and they start to say, oh, we were this, and they've rebranded to something else, and now they're just leveraging AI, et cetera. Again, we're just chasing the trends, et cetera, and that's not helping. You have elements of it in there if you want. You probably don't need it. And you're right, so that is interesting.
It's like the balance between having your core, and if it's appropriate, sure, add a layer of something that's the hype, but for me, it's the very aggressive pivoting your whole positioning. And it can be pretty detrimental. So I think that's a piece of advice to general founders building out there, is test your positioning properly.
Yes. And sit in it, just enjoy what you're building, and just give it space. Just give it space to grow, and it will grow over time. And technology, the cool thing about it is that's the thing, right? Technology is always updating itself. So you think that you need to update your model, but you don't have to. Most of the biggest technologies in the world are still doing the same thing that they've always done at the core.
It's due to the nature of crypto and Web3. I think because people see founders become so successful almost what seems like overnight, it can be very tempting to want to follow those paths. But I've got a theory, and I'm actually developing a lot of data on this at the moment, that these overnight successes probably have just kept to a narrative that they've owned for a very long time. And I'm talking a long time being more than 6 months, because that's a long time in crypto.
Yeah, it is.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing at the moment, because look, we both work in tech. I find Web3 fascinating. I'm a huge fan of decentralized financial technology. That's my passion. And and yours too on some level, because obviously we've collaborated a lot in that field. And naturally, through working in tech, we're adopting AI at a huge rate. My company is, I'm completely automated now. No need for a PA. I'm really enjoying the empowerment that AI has given me, especially as someone that's like slightly neurodivergent. It really helps me focus and stay consistent with my productivity. You're doing some really interesting work in AI, so I'd love to hear about what you're doing specifically and how you're helping projects. But also, I'd love to understand the kind of crossover that you see in these industries.
Yeah, so we are going through a massive wave of AI, and it has taken a lot of flight. I've turned into this sort of social, I've always been this, but now there's a label for it, social arb trading. So it's essentially seeing what the social narrative is of the world, and then essentially chasing those. So for like an example, if you hear of a brand that is doing something, but not in the headlines because it's already the price, but in the chats, TikTok comments, Twitter feed, like you see the community talking about it. That's when you start to, because that's the users are already using it before it's being priced into the stock. So it's actually catching it before it's too late. And that's what this whole AI craze is right now. It was, people were just going to the chips. They were going to these bigger companies that basically were just doing the overall Anthropic, the NVIDIAs, you have the OpenAIs, but then now it's the bottleneck trade. And we're looking at that whole aspect and what's happening over there. So it's just been, it's just an absolute wild time. And I've been doing this for quite a while, and it's just taken flight. So essentially what I do with my AI side of things is, as I said, I'm a translator for companies to adopt AI, and that translator in their business of how they can adapt AI into their business model. And you would find that there's a lot of people that are, just basically just using AI as what you're doing, and as an assistant. They've got the OpenClaw. They're essentially just using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is, and Gemini, and essentially that's it. But what we do is basically build infrastructures for companies. And it could be as easy as a builder that wants to have an AI voice recording that has basically of that person's voice, and they're up a ladder and they don't have time to pick up their phone, etc. And that person leaves a message which can book or ask a question, or I want this done. It can go all the way to invoicing and, even get charged right there and then. So when that builder comes down from the ladder, he's like, oh, I've already booked a job. It's all on calendar, etc. Blah, blah, blah. So it's about that, but it's not creating elements, because what we've seen and what's very expensive is you have a lot of AI consultants now because it's become a trend. Yeah. And what they're doing is they're piecing elements together, but they don't have that foundation and that core. So building that AI core for a company is where I go. And it did start just piecing little elements together, like what I was saying before with the builder, or it could be anything. It could be a small business, even helping them with accountings, real estate, etc. I work with a large telecommunication company in New Zealand, the largest in New Zealand. And essentially the conversation was like this. They already have AI and people working the AI division, so they don't need help. I said, okay, how big's your team? And he goes, 80 people. I said, 80 people doing AI? Interesting. People in Silicon Valley or in San Francisco, etc., they can barely hire 7, and you've got 80 of them? Now that's interesting. What's going on here? So now it's just basically us doing the audit to understand what these 80 are doing and how do we automate some of that, and then basically bring that foundation together. And yeah, there's going to be, at the beginning, we're at that stage where we're going to see some people lose their jobs, etc., but that could be an excuse for other stuff. But over time, we're going to see that it's going to produce more jobs. So I'm very excited about this technology. And it goes back to what I've been doing in crypto, this wayfinding and consulting, but basically giving people a direction, understanding their business model, and then essentially adapting AI to it. And some projects, some people, they don't need it. But then some do. And it's the same as back in 2016 when I was doing it with blockchain. People were going, do I need AI? Do I not? I'll translate it to your business. That's what we do. And that's what I feel is right now. It's 2016 moment for AI right now. And you're seeing it in the charts. You're seeing it every day. You see some stock that is trading like what crypto should be doing at the moment. So it's huge. It's also given crypto this new meaning, but it's not ready. Crypto's not ready yet. We don't have the Clarity Act.
Right.
We can get into that. We can get into that later. But we're starting to see the speculative assets and industry take flight. And as people have said, again, it's everywhere, and it makes sense. I don't want to go too hocus pocus and get my little ball out, but to keep it grounded, AI. I think AI needs blockchain over time, and blockchain will need AI, and AI it needs payments. Like for me, when I want to get my AI assistant, etc., to pay for things, we can do that. I mean, it can't plug into my bank, etc. It also gives AI a bit of an identity and ownership and everything on the blockchain. So that's essentially what the blockchain technology was about, right? It was like that trust. So the blockchain can essentially verify what is real in the world, and then the AI can do and create almost anything. So then we just need this validation is essentially what I see. So AI can just see that everything's possible, and then blockchain helps to verify it. So that's why I see a lot of the crossover. And right now it just feels like we're at that point where it's the most important technology and economics in both spheres.
And there is space for that. And I think right now there's obviously quite a lot of fear. I'm seeing interesting things in regards to like the Web3 space and people completely pivoting out. And I think it's very nice to have a perspective over the two. I'm personally a little bit worried about juniors and how they're going to cope with AI. I feel very grateful to be senior already and be able to leverage AI. But it's interesting for you to hear that you think it's going to create more jobs, that you're getting such a front line experience coming into already pre-existing, huge companies, and them having 80 people and seeing how you can refine that. So why do you think it's going to create more jobs? What's your perspective? And I think if anyone has a hocus pocus ball, it should be you. If anybody, Omar, he's an incredible analysis of the markets. I've actually asked my team to put his Telegram handle on the post, because I personally only get my market insights from you, Omar. I really enjoy this. So.
Thank you so much. It's very early. It's very early to say, but when you talk about juniors, I mean, we've gone through these technological reamps, reshaping and shakeout, and we're now finding it goes right back to what we're talking about with crypto founders. There is no excuse. So juniors, they're going to now have to learn how to be a junior in something else, but using AI as an entry into a company. So using the tools around to become already a senior. So
it's like everyone needs to level up.
You need to, no, and this is what we're doing, productivity. This is it. Everyone has to level up. And people think that I've had many, why I'm saying builders is because I've been working with these guys, and it's so funny. I've been working with a lot of intellects, and then I was about to say drop down, how rude of me, but you essentially then will go to these guys that are laborers, think more with their hands, etc. And they go, oh, I would love to see your AI go plumb a toilet. And I said, nah, mate, they're going to pay you to do that. They're going to pay you to do that. That's your job. There's already AI websites right now where there's AI trying to find humans.
Wow.
So because they need hands, and robotics are coming. That's later down the track, and that's my whole thesis as well. Is like where the trade is. You look at the bottlenecks, and then the future of all this robotics is down the track, and you're starting to see Elon, etc., with SpaceX and all of this combining together. You can see it. It's happening right in front of us. of how this is going to go. But robotics is going to do certain things. They've been trialing, testing. Are we going to not need people in factories anymore? No, but who is going to be watching those robots, let's say, or etc.? It's going to be those entry-level juniors that know how to work AI. So I think it's basically about that upskilling, and you could go quite left field or right field, however you want to look at it. But I would just keep it simple. And I just see that there is a world where the productivity is going to come into place, which means there's going to be more jobs. There's going to be more how many people are vibe coding right now? It's wild. So this is another thing that needs to be regulated or toned in, because there's just a lot of gunk out there. Yeah. But as people exploring stuff, and you're going to start to see that it's going to get to a point where it's going to work. And then if you're too much of a junior that is starting to play with AI, you're soon going to be the owner of the senior and build the companies that are going to be bigger than the people above you. So corporations, people, the 1%, they don't want that. So they're going to have to regulate that. So they need people to have jobs. So it's just going to be that thing where we're still the creative minds. We're still going to be in charge of things. But AI and robotics, etc., they are the executioners. And I don't mean killing people, but they will do the execution of everything. They'll go and do everything. We are the ones that become creative, and even juniors at that point. But yes, it's an opportunity right now to definitely level up and understand, and then wait till crypto and AI come together. We're starting to see that. We're starting to see this agentic AI for trading, etc. But AI, as I said, like, that's the intelligence. Blockchain is the trust. The humans are the ones that operate all of that. So putting that together, you can start building systems that, can think, translate, and really prove what is real out there, instead of watching these things that are going viral on TikTok or Instagram or social media and go, wow, look at this. And someone goes, that's AI made. That never happened. So we need that to be validated. So yeah.
So the human force will be integrated in with it all. I love that perspective. It feels really refreshing to hear.
I could go negative if you want, but I don't want to.
No. I like that there's a perspective that you can even provide. I think we're in a massive shift, and it can feel quite alienating without understanding some potentials of what can happen. So I think some futurism is really helpful right now.
It's needed. And the cool thing is, and people say, how do you picture this and how do you do this, is you look at the charts, you look what's out there, you see how this is moving, and you ignore Twitter, etc., because that's just full of emotions. But you just have to look at the charts, and if it's in the press, it's in the price. But it's got to the point now where everyone's like, oh, the S&P is going to crash. And I mean, it's going to get to a point where it just gets too frothy. But we are seeing IPOs come out now, which essentially is always the top of a market if we go dating back, So we do know what's coming, or do we? Because these assets, it's not like the dot-com bubble at all. In terms of these, there's so much revenue and value coming into these products, and we can see a future of this. And of course, it needs to be priced in. And again, the dot-com was that speculative bubble, where you just had websites that just said .com on that. But now we can see there's companies, they're providing chips, they're doing robotic stuff. They've pivoted some of their elements, like SanDisk, how they've just gone from nothing to something. Intel, they're all just catching on. And it's not just catching on to the AI, it's just adapting their model precisely to fit the narrative. And that's what you're seeing in the price.
So you obviously have a huge scope on these projects. I think there's the giants that we're all aware of, and we're often even using them day to day. But are there any smaller, interesting startups that you're seeing on the AI side that you think are particularly interesting?
I mean, CoreWeave, but that's gone. I have been seeing a lot of energy. I've been focused on energy and arbitraging elements of energy on grids. That's something that I've been quite interested in, because that is something that we're going to need in the future. So energy is that next thing that needs updating, right? So I think that's just a sector that I think people should be looking into. And is there any startups? Yeah, I've seen a few. I'm just trying to think. any off memory that have stuck with me. Yes, but I'm doing some stuff with them, so I can't really say anything. But
okay. Under NDA, no stress.
Yes, but I'll mention some. I've mentioned some on my LinkedIn, and I will mention some more there. Yeah,
okay.
soon.
So keep eyeballs, because I mean, Omar's got a very good scope on projects, and ones that, you know, I've personally worked with that have been very successful. So I think you've got a good taste and a good judgment.
Thank you.
You know,
so I think it's
yeah, go for it.
So, yeah, sorry. I just think there's some areas, like, it's less about the projects, as I said. It's more about those bottlenecks, which are doing some, you know, that's where I'm sort of focusing, especially with the social side of things, or what people are talking about. And right now it's the infrastructure of the build out of AI. So you got the chips, the compute, the memory, then the data centers is a big one, cooling. And then we'll move into some other aspects, power grids, even copper is anyone sort of working in copper. Nuclear is starting to come back in. Let's just get this Iran stuff out the way. And then, of course, the supply chains required to support that massive AI demand. And then we start to move into, we've already started to see a lot of the defense and military aspects come into thing, but that's something I sort of keep away from. The ethics behind it, but you are seeing a lot of that come into place. Robotics, autonomy, yeah. And then in crypto, the AI play is the identity, the AI agents, and then I've always been fascinated. I was part of a company that did like a decentralized compute, a containerized, decentralized, tokenized AI. That works more with enterprise, you know, healthcare and more private data, etc. But there's a bit of a backlog on that, because we still haven't got the HIPAA compliance, etc. when it comes to healthcare records being hosted in specific countries. So it's really difficult, and that was a difficult thing in crypto as I've tried to build healthcare companies in crypto, etc. So there's just things need updated. And then, of course, payments, validation, and ownerships. And, you know, NFTs might come back, fingers crossed.
Yeah, the thing that I'm seeing that I'm most fascinated by in AI is more like some problem that it's solving. So, you know, the GPU compute, you know, blockchain could really help with that and distribute it better and make it more efficient. So whoever solves that, I think, is going to be really in for a win. And then the other thing,
notes,
the whole secondary market appearing with tokens, and lots of people aren't using all their tokens. And there's this very interesting project that we're advising a little bit at the moment that are trying to solve that and creating a whole secondary market within the fact that I've got multiple AI platforms, and which one do I actually use, and how can I make this more efficient, and maybe I can sell some of my tokens to another individual. So yeah, it's all getting really interesting, and the merging between blockchain and AI is definitely happening in a very efficient, interesting way where they're complementing each other. So I'm very excited about the next year.
Yeah, that's interesting about the tokens. I think there's definitely a good play there. But again, this is sort of future. I hope some of this sort of terminology, et cetera, helps founders to really understand what they're looking for. Yeah, but it's interesting.
Okay, so we've got a bit of time left, and I think it would be nice if you could share some of your real advice and insights, just coming back to the founding layer a little bit. If I've got some questions that I'd like to ask you. So this is like the founder advice section, and I think you can provide a lot of value here. So let's say you are just starting, you have no capital, no connections, but you've got a really good idea and you want to do it. You know that there's something here. You've validated the gap in the market. What's the first step that you take?
So you're a founder that's got nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
But you like
an idea and a dream, and the shirt on your back.
So, okay, well, this is cool because we've talked about a lot of the angles here. So I would say the first thing is, if you have an idea, If you've got no connections, etc. Yeah, we've already covered this. We've already done this, which is fantastic. I'm going to find it down. So if you've got nothing, you're basically creating a product that solves a problem, and then build as much as you can of that product to have an understanding by yourself. And in this age of AI, there's no excuses not to have an MVP, not to have documents, not to have a budget, not to have a business plan, websites, marketing plans, and even starting your marketing with agents, everything yourself, right? So there's no excuse. So then once you start moving then once you've done that, I would just, one of my mentors said to me is just take the leap, go out there, be hungry, and once you have that product and everything ticking along, you're going to get the right momentum and the energy and just to get going, and you'll find it. And there isn't a book really. There isn't like a cheat sheet. Well, I mean, there's lots. People sell you them online, but everyone's story is very different. There is no road that will, what you can do. There's an idea of a road, but you got to, build it yourself with your personality, your character. And that's something that, again, that I'm looking for, is that character in a person. And I know devs and, you're a developer, etc. But if you can't pitch the idea or have the energy, you have to find someone to do it. But that's an excuse. You know what I mean? I think I've seen a lot of developers, we've worked people, even when they're pitching, doing their pitch deck and stuff, they've learned it. And once they go, oh, that's not what I do, I'm like, limitations right there. You just put a limitations on yourself there, and you've actually restricted yourself, and you're wasting investors' money because you need to now get money to get someone to pitch it for you. So you're burning money, and that comes right back to, you're not good with money. If you're not good with money, that amount of money that you're going to have is you won't have a good run rate, and then it's out. So you really need to either find someone that's close to you, that's not going to cost a lot, and make it fair. Everything needs to be about fair. Make sure that they're incentivized from day one, and they know no willy-nilly, oh, we'll talk about it later. No, they have a firm idea. You got to commit. They need to commit. And the biggest thing that you can do is go out there and fail miserably. Take massive risks and be an idiot, go on stage, fail miserably. You have to. And once you've done it, and once you've done it right, once you've failed miserably, and that's why I say at the beginning, you're going to go out there, you're going to do your first presentation for 15 minutes, and you're going to suck. And if you suck, that means you've done it. You've sucked. Now you can only get better. And then it's about being honest with yourself. And that's a big thing. But you need to solve all those problems and create the content, attend the events, be hungry.
I love and you've approached it from a real solo entrepreneurship, which I think is much more doable now with AI. You can be a solo founder. It's very, very possible. But for me, the two pieces of advice that I would give are very similar to yours. And one is that if you don't have the skills and attributes, you need to find someone that does, right? So for me, I'm strategy, I'm marketing, I'm big picture thinking. My co-founder is a full stack developer, and we complement each other very well because he brings structure and logic and operations, something that I find challenging. So find the co-founder that can complement things that you lack, because you can't ever be you can if you're incredibly lucky. That I've met people that have literally tech, marketing, all of it, and that's, they're a unicorn. But it's about accepting what you don't have. But then also, if you're in a city, there's going to be many events that you can attend. Get on Luma, get on Eventbrite, get on Meetup, find free events and start to build your network. Your network is everything. Go and speak to every single person in the room until someone can add some value, and don't be shy and be willing to fail and all of that jazz. I mean, that is literally how I would start, is just attending 100%. Every free event possible in my area, because there's many.
And ask questions, ask lots of questions. How did you get to what? And find some rock stars that have done it. Like I remember when I first met the CEO of a well-known crypto project that is still around today, that we worked with. Like when I saw him just one time on stage, and I was like, damn, that guy just is amazing at what he does. He speaks, he's clear, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's quite like stylish, not as a shock factor, but as like he's got a sense of how he wants to be perceived and looked. Voice is there. And I had to go up to him and I said, dude, what do you, even though I saw this, I'm like, who are you? What do you do? Because it was so fascinating. And then how did you get here? Can we do this? Can I meet you? Can I take you out for something? Who are you? Blah, blah, blah. And then I started working with him. And that was one of those moments where you just have to get the ego out the way. Again, very cliche and icky, but it is that, and compliment is another thing as well. And just stay in your lane is a big one. And also just be useful. That's one of my things. Just be useful.
Yeah, I always say that the first 2 years that I spent in Web3, I just listened because I knew I was ignorant. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I like to wrap up with the same question, which I'm going to apply for each guest. And it's been so good to have you, and I've had such a fun time, and thank you.
Me too. Thank you very much.
So the question is, what mindset did you have to build to get here? Because you're obviously a very successful individual. So what mindset did you have to build to get here? And which one did you have to leave behind?
One or two, or as many as can I just rattle them off that comes to mind?
You do whatever feels right for you, Omar.
Okay. Because you did give me a layup of this before, and I was like, oh, that's quick. But then over this, when I was talking, a lot of it came out from this conversation. Long-term thinking for me is something that I had to build, and these, not having these short-term emotions was something that I had to really work on, especially when it came to cryptocurrencies, etc. Because that's why I need to sort of have an idea of where I'm going and what's coming, is because I got to think long term. I have to have that conviction. I have to have this belief. I need to really know what I want and how I'm going to get there. And by doing that, you need to see where you need to get to or have an idea. And the short-term volatility, especially in crypto, I've been in the space, and Bitcoin ups and downs for how many cycles? It's been wild, especially with Ethereum. I've had 19 cycles with that thing. And it's just, you have to keep that conviction. You got to believe that it's all going to come together. As we can see, it is with BlackRock and all these guys coming on board. Even though it's not in the price, it's good, but you can see the validation is there. So it's definitely something that I've been holding on to. Curiosity is a big thing as well, especially in this space, being very curious about everything. And execution, getting out there and just doing it instead of making things perfect, has been something that I think a lot of people need to do, especially when it comes to social media, getting their voice, and you be prepared to fail in front of everyone. You're allowed to do that. So execution, patience is a big thing that I had to build in my head. It's like I wanted things to happen now, but it never did. And then again, that conviction of everything. And what else? I think learning to see these opportunities. It took me so long to really understand that. And instead of just basically like just picking random things, I really needed to see the opportunities and learning what those opportunities are and doing a lot of deep research. So that's something that it wasn't me. I didn't have that. So I had to build that sort of that mindset, which is that character, and it opened lots of traumas and fears and everything, but you just got to go through it if you really love it and want to do it. So that's something that I had to break through. And what I had to leave behind is validation from, I would say, other people, my peers, my family, etc., my friends. I've had many people say, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that. Especially I had this other career, which was basically impossible. And I did pretty well in that. And that was because I really wanted to do it. And that was, I don't mind sharing, is acting. And I had a bit of success there. And that was something that I had to leave behind, not wanting people to say, you're on the right path, you're doing the right thing. You got to just take risks and do everything yourself. And no chase. So I was chasing objects, shiny objects. And that's something we talked about before. Get rid of that. What else did I have to leave behind? Oh, the fear of looking silly, stupid. That's something I left behind. You have to do that. And I've been a firm believer in that. You got to take risks. And if you can't, and you really hate talking in front of people, then go and do some stand-up comedy. Go and do some videos. Why? Because you're going to get instant gratification instantly. And then from there, you can build up that wall, or actually release that wall, and then I was able to become myself in the space when the fear and everything disappears. So that's cool. And also comparing, that's the other thing. You brought it up as well, seeing all these founders, their success overnight, they're not, and also you might think they've got amazing cars, etc. We don't know how they got those cars. Stop comparing. And that's something that I had to stop doing, because it does get in your head and you lose faith very quickly. So I had to leave all of that behind. And also, success for me, was that going to bring me happiness? No. So what does? And that's something I had to work on, and took me a long time to get into it.
And figure that out.
Yeah. I think that's about enough. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you, Omar. I mean, I learned a lot from this hour, and I really appreciate you. I'm looking forward to continue doing amazing work together. And thank you so much for all this value add that you've provided everyone. And thank you everyone for being here. This has been our first Founders Ledger, so looking forward to more incredible guests. And I hope everyone has a really beautiful, fulfilling, amazing day and week ahead.
Thank you very much for having me on, and good luck, everybody. Honestly, it's a great world out there.
And reach out to Omar if you need anything. I'm sure he's more than willing to provide some value to what you're doing.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, 100%.
All right. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and we'll speak soon, Omar.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ciao.